And now we bring you Killer Wives, episode 19, The Chest. These are the case facts against Danielle Green, who killed her own husband. Isn't trust a bitch? Cincinnati, Ohio, made famous for the birth of Charles Manson. Comedian Cat Williams, but also made famous for the murder of one Mr. Ray Green, 3 miles down the road.
Sergeant Central. 19 Sergeant. You have a call back for 86 into Central? Negative K, nothing further. Just see the cabbie in the corner.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Killer Wives. Did a vicious family dog aggressively bite Ray Green by the throat, killing him instantly, as his wife Danielle said? Or perhaps Mr. Green decided to load up all of his gear, get into his diesel tractor trailer, and go over the road trucking, never to return again? Or did she cowardly shoot him in the back while he was asleep instead of telling the truth? And that truth was that she covered up a murder she had committed. Now, all these stories and tall tales would be bandied about within a 24-hour period to investigators by Miss Green herself. Investigators had really nothing to go on until they extended their search parameters for missing Mr. Green. Now, local Indiana authorities received an alarming call from the 84-year-old Betty Green, the mother of Ray Green, on Wednesday, May the 28th, 2 days after Memorial Day in 2014. His mother recanted to police what she claimed her daughter-in-law, Danielle Green, called her with a strange story about Betty's son Ray. Now, Danielle said the family dog named Jazzy had attacked Ray, bit him viciously by the throat, and killed him instantly. I don't know about you, but I haven't heard too many cases of dogs immediately killing somebody by biting their throat. Now, this would be an amazing story if she were not referring to the lovable German Shepherd and family pet who wouldn't bite a fly. So after hanging up the phone with Danielle that Wednesday morning, Betty felt that something just wasn't right. She knew her son had been an actual cowboy his entire life, people. A horse trainer by trade, and a lover of animals, as well as a man that all animals loved. In a true story, Ray actually caught a 12-foot, 750-pound alligator with his bare hands and put it in the barn after all trapping mechanisms failed in the community that this gator had been terrorizing. Ray was a real man, a man's man. Ray was not the kind of person that would go down with a dog bite. Now, if Mr. Green didn't know anything else, or his mother didn't know anything else about her son, she knew that. Ma Green decided to request a wellness check from the police after not being able to get in touch with Ray directly by phone. When authorities arrived in Dillsboro property 1.5 miles away from the Cincinnati, Ohio border, where Daniel and Ray lived, neither Ray Green nor Jazzy, the family dog, were anywhere to be found. Police did find Danielle neither distraught or frustrated for answers for what happened. She was pretty calm. In fact, they found her going about her regular day feeding horses as if nothing never happened. Police questioned Danielle, and she began to tell them a completely different story than what she had told Ray's mother over the phone just hours earlier. Danielle told investigators that Ray wasn't dead after all, but out doing his regular over-the-road work as a truck driver. Now, as a truck driver. Now, the only thing wrong with this scenario was that the truck she was referring to that he was going to drive away in was sitting parked in plain view on the property. Now, since investigators began to sense that Miss Green was not being entirely honest with them, they decided to move to the first stage of all modern policing in the missing person cases. They decided to initiate what is known as a cell phone trace of Mr. Green's phone. To their utter shock, that cell phone pinged right there on the property in close proximity to where they were standing. The first chink in the armor of a novice killer is in not destroying the very evidence that would incriminate you. A lot of these cases are exactly like that. Now, at that point, Danielle had no choice but to give police the right to search the 300-acre property of her now deceased parents that she had inherited. See, after all, she didn't want to throw up any type of signals that would say she was trying to hide something, or perhaps someone. The only caveat to that search of the 300-acre property, she added, was that police were not allowed to look at the one metal padlock chest out back on the entire multi-acre property. Now, that chest was a large metal toolbox sitting yards away from her front door. The full-size cargo truck tool chest was padlocked on one end with the other end slightly open. So what started out as a simple wellness check, initiated by his 84-year-old mother, in another state, mind you, will soon become something far worse and sickening. Now, this tragic story began more than a dozen years prior in San Antonio, Texas, where Ray, a renowned horse breeder and trainer, met Danielle. Now, known as Danny at the time, one of his equestrian clients, and started a romantic relationship. Now, the relationship did not become romantic until the death of his first wife. Mr. Green's first wife, called Maggie, was the love of his life and his partner in horse training business, and she died in a nationally televised bridge collapse in 2002. I'm sure if you remember history, you remember this bridge collapse. The I-40 bridge disaster was a bridge collapse that occurred southeast of Webbers Falls, Oklahoma at 7:45 a.m. on May the 26th of 2002. Freight barges being transported on the Arkansas River collided with the pier supporting the Interstate 40 road crossing that river. Now, unfortunately, after the barge hit the bridge, its two main supports, roadways collapsed, and as a result, 11 people were injured and 14 people lost their lives as their vehicles plunged into the cold, murky waters of the Arkansas River. Now, Maggie, his first wife, was killed in that tragic bridge collapse while she was on her way home from a barrel race with their horses. And the horses perished as well. Now, many say at the time that the light went out in Ray's life when she died. He didn't feel like living. Many times he cried out that he was missing his Maggie. As a result of the bridge collapse incident, a subsequent lawsuit was filed on behalf of the families affected in the collapse, and as a result, Ray was given a settlement of approximately $1.5 million. And this is pretty normal in these particular cases. Now, around this time, Danielle increased her interest in Ray as she moved to become something more than just a client of his. Danielle believed that this was the time to make her play and her move for the windfall of Ray's deceased wife. That money, she wanted to become hers. She grew fast and close to Ray over the next 2 months. She grew so close to him, in fact, that they went on a vacation together and came back married. You guessed it. Now, a lot of people were just happy that Ray was able to be happy once again, although they knew that Danielle had chased Ray more than he did, despite the 22-year age difference between the two. The couple eloped and moved to Palm Beach, Florida, purchasing a 10-acre property in an upscale equestrian community using some of the funds from his wife's settlement. So for Maggie's settlement, she's ready to move on with the dream of hers, not Ray's. Now, they had relocated to pursue Danny's dream of competing in the Olympic category of dressage. Dressage is like a form of horse dancing and horse racing. Now, over the next few years of marriage, her love for him would be cloaked in pursuing Daniel's dream in deference to Ray's life or his dreams. It was around this time that Danielle began to push Ray's adult daughter out of his life so she could have him and his money all to herself. Ray knew nothing of this and would ask his daughter, "How come you never call me? I miss you." He would tell her this. What actually transpired in order to keep Ray distant from his daughter was that Ray and Danny shared a single cell phone, and Danny blocked Tracy's number purposely. Tracy said she had begun to get messages when dialing her father's phone that said, "This phone is no longer taking calls from this number." Daniel had blocked her emails and letters. She sent her father a certified Christmas card with pictures of his grandchildren, and it came back to her unopened and denied. Danny was into herself. Would any of her family members of hers be damned? Danny trained from sunup to sundown. When she wasn't in the saddle, she and Ray discovered a fun and unusual hobby called cowboy action shooting. And it exists today, if you haven't heard of it, cowboy action shooting. Now, cowboy action shooting is a shooting discipline based on the guns of the Old West, the days of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. Now, typically, the players shoot guns originally or replicas. They enjoy dressing for the most part in period-accurate clothing as they shoot steel targets with lead bullets. Each shooter is given a permanent alias at the competition, and Danny and Ray were given aliases. Danny went by the alias Danny Oakley, as in Annie Oakley, and Ray as Doc R. Green, as in the Western famous Doc Holliday. Friends described Danny as a skilled shooter with the drive to win, so she had gun skills. They say Ray was just there for the fun. But most unfortunately, as it does rain in everyone else's life, like yours, the couple's newfound high life came crashing down along with the stock market crash of 2008, and the horse market fell apart. Now, the dressers training and competitive field fell apart as well. Danny and Ray faced financial and personal hardships because they were connected to the horsing industry. They sold their rather large property at a substantial loss because they had no major money left over from the settlement. She had drained it dry in the pursuit of her dreams and her happiness. At least they would have had something to fall back on. Now, they were paying their current mortgage with their funds from refinancing their first mortgage. Now, around this time of financial tragedy, Ray had no choice but to accept a job as a landscaper, which included mowing the rather large right-of-ways of his exclusive community, which was a rich community. But he had been lured to doing just that. A second tragedy struck when both of Daniel's parents came down with cancer at the same time. Now, because of this, she decided to move back home to her Indiana family home in 2012 to take care of both of them. The following year, they died. So Ray joined Danny on the 300-acre property. It was a large portion of which Danny stood to inherit. And it was on this property that authorities obtained a search warrant to open that metal chest she had earlier refused them passage. When it was open, would you guess what was in that container? Ray Green was found dead and naked inside of it, with 10 bullet shots to his body. Now, detectives returned to Danny telling her they were done with the search. When detectives told her we found him, she really had no reaction. She responded simply with, "Okay." Now, that's when detectives say Danny's story of what happened to Ray changed yet again. Now saying she had been forced to shoot Ray dead 2 days before in self-defense. She began to explain that there were instances of abuse. And now in a lot of these cases, women claim abuse after being caught. Now, that this, she said, had begun in Florida and wound up here. The detective said that she kind of quickly glossed over the actual shooting of Ray and went right to where she had to do it and why she had to do it. The detectives recorded an interview with Danny on the property. She told him Ray had been physically abusive for years and tried to force sex on her several times in the days leading up to the shooting. These are two things that are bandied about when women kill their spouses: abuse and rape. Now, Danny said it all led up to the fatal clash early on Monday, May 26th, Memorial Day. 3 days later, she went on videotape with investigators offering a unique demonstration in a calm and a matter-of-fact way. On the video, Danny is overheard saying, and I don't remember pulling the trigger. I don't remember pointing. I don't remember hearing gunshots. Now remember, this is a woman who fires guns for a living. So Green told police her ex-husband had threatened to kill her, repeatedly saying, "I am going to kill you. You need to die." Now after she used the bathroom in the trailer one morning that he was in, she said on that video that there was a loaded and cocked .38 caliber handgun on Raymond's bedside table. Remember? Think about it. She said he lunged towards her, and that's when she grabbed the gun and shot him 10 times, she told police. Ray Green is a volcano defensive attorney, Delmar Weldon said, and he protected her. He exploded and attacks her, and she kills him to save her own life. This was her defense attorney. Now, however, Negangard, the prosecutor in the case, said Daniel killed her ex-husband so she could go back to Florida and be with Mr. McNasty. Now, McNasty was the alias given to another man at the shooting club they left behind in Florida. She corresponded with McNasty over the internet on a daily basis and had dreams of living her new life with him after she got her spouse out of the way. Now, within 2 days of taking Ray's body out of that chest, the investigators were back into the house to video interview with Miss Green about what occurred during that particular shooting. They wanted her to show them, right? Show them how it happened, and not just tell them how it happened. One of the lead detectives was standing as her husband as she demonstrated the tragic event. The lead detective wrote in his report after her presentation back at the station that her story was not believable, not one bit. Now, an autopsy of Ray's body had been done during the time and the coroner determined that Ray was murdered, and not at all in the fashion that will corroborate her story. The investigation actually shown that Ray was shot 3 times in the back as he lay peacefully sleeping. A total of 5 shots were given to his body. Then the coroner found that Ray was also shot 5 times in the head, for a total of 10 shots to the body. Now this was a classic case of malice and overkill. Within hours of the coroner's murder determination, Danny was arrested and charged with the killing of her husband. Police found a forensic search of her personal computer that months earlier, Miss Danielle Green, loving wife of Mr. Green, had been searching online for items including .38 caliber gunshots going straight through a person's head. On a site entitled Let's Talk, terminal ballistics, headshots. On another one, bullets do not work that way. And yet another, the shooting of Trayvon Martin. Another, how did Gabrielle Gifford survive a shot in the head? Another one, headshot from .38 caliber at close range. Another, if you shoot someone with a .38 caliber handgun in the head, is it lights out or possibly survive? Would shooting a .38 caliber go straight through at close range? Or what happens when you get shot in the head? And finally, stopping power. Now, this is not a case of self-defense. Negangard, the prosecutor for the case, said, "This is a case of cold-blooded murder and nothing else." At the sentencing phase of the trial against Miss Danielle Green in the cold-blooded murder of her husband of 12 years, she was convicted of murdering Ray and stuffing his body into the chest. Although she blamed it initially on a dog, an animal cannot shoot a man 10 times with a gun, let alone 1 time. They don't have an opposable thumb. Now, Danielle Green was sentenced to 60 years in prison, which is 5 years below the maximum penalty of 65 for a particular case. Now, the prosecutor for the state, Mr. Negangard, said there was no evidence of self-defense and Green shot her husband execution style while he was sleeping. Raymond Green was a Vietnam veteran, a very decorated one. His family, who lives in Texas, is satisfied with the sentence. Fortunately for the justice system and fortunately for the family of Ray Green, she will not get to spend her life as a free person. Prosecutor Negangard had this to say. Now, Ray and his first wife Maggie both died on May 26, exactly 12 years apart. For Killer Wives, this is Charles Rivers. Thank you for watching.